Welcome to Raw Painting. In this video series, we're just going to be painting miniatures. You're going to get a bird's eye view of me just painting miniatures. It's raw, uncut. We're going to post it as it's recorded, so there's never any telling what's going to be said. If you like watching miniatures being painted, if you've got tips, tricks you want to pick up, if you want to add any content in the comments below, I'll be happy to reply to them. And let's just jump in and paint some miniatures. As we lay in some colors here, it's going to be a little funky. I want to, even on my wet palette, I want to thin down the paints, a couple of them, a little bit more. So, and I actually want to pull the paint this way. There we go. Because I want the concentration of the paint to be further back. So this will tint a little bit of this white into this yellow shade. And this is a dull yellow. Again, for inspiration, I just Googled a lot of pictures of horns and found a couple that I really liked. That's my inspiration. This one has kind of a wrap around it that we're going to decorate with golds, non-metallic metal golds. But I don't want this yellow to go completely to the band in all the locations. So just a couple of select locations. Again, because this is so thinned down, it's almost like a dye. And I'm working from transitionally where it's going to be lighter to where it's going to be darker, because the tips and the ends are going to end up black. But by doing this yellow wash, the transitions, although they will be harsh, they'll be a lot harsher than what we've seen in the armors and the fabrics. It will actually have tone in the transitions from that frost white to the browns and blacks that we'll be laying in as colors. This will just help make it so it's not too stark. And shows gradient. For a wash, I normally put this on very heavy and thick. I'm actually taking some off of the brush prior to applying. That way it's not as heavy. And a little bit more down in there, I think. And with this wash, the more we apply, the more opaque it gets. But overall, I think that's pretty good. You can see where the color's the boldest at the end of the pole, where it settles in, and then just more gradient on the way out. And I'm thinning down that medium brown that we used on the chest as well. And here and there, I'm just gonna lay down a little bit. Now I'm not doing as much or as wide a swath as I did with the yellow. So I want that yellow to kind of show through in many places. Still being very deliberate with my brush. I want to start peeking some of those colors into that previous yellow layer to give a sense of boy, that area there is tough. But this will help give it a sense of, I guess, organic feel, because it's not stark, you know, lines to the ends. And just nice and thin paint. To thin that out a little bit more. As we move into the ends, and again pulling the paint out to the tips. So opposite of what we did on the ends. Start giving it more tone, and this is where we're going to start getting tricky after we get this piece here. Because we're going to lay in a couple of areas of color right on that white, and this is going to be where we started. And just nice even coverage. Within that color. So what I want to do, and I started it here a little bit there, you can see that dot. I'm actually going to lay in a couple of more vertical areas. In this side here. I'm going to put 2 in there, and then maybe 1 over in here, kind of dancing along where that band is. Now with that same color, but not thinned. I'm going to go in and just start laying down an additional bit. Maybe my brush is a little dry. There we go. So again, a little less than what we had done before, because we want that tonal brown to show through. And just keeping these kind of rough. This side here is such a challenge because of the helmet and the angle, so I'm going to have to break my process, and instead of pulling towards the helmet, I'm going to actually have to pull out, which I don't like, but I'm going to have to do it. And then while we're on this side, I'm going to continue laying on some color on this side. And finish this horn on that color before I move to the next. Now I have been going kind of back and forth, inner end to inner end and outer end to outer end. Process wise doesn't really matter. Whatever you're most comfortable doing. Alright, now on to this one here. Kind of the same deal. Leave some of your previous washes showing. So now that we've seen the next mini we're doing, Blight Fang the Dragon, I welcome you to pick up one yourself, paint along with me. I think it'd kind of be interesting to see what kind of different palettes people would use and the steps that they would take in the upcoming Reaper Challenge for 2021. One of the, I guess, contests that they do, or challenges that they do, it's not a contest, it's just challenges. One of them that they do is called duos and trios, and that's where you have multiple people pick a mini and everybody paints the same mini. So aside from coordinating the mini that you're going to be painting, you don't need to coordinate on colors or anything like that. It's really actually kind of awesome to see the different color palettes and everything that people do on the same mini. It's a lot of fun. My schedule is a little funky, so I think the first one I'm going to be able to do is going to be in May. Myself and another painter, who she is fantastic. Her are going to be doing we're the first 2 out of 3 on a trio for May. We're going to find another person to trio with us. But should be really interesting, should be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see the mini that we choose. So here we go. Get ready. Here's where it starts getting really contrasty. We're going with an even darker brown. And just starting to lay in a darker brown. I actually could have possibly done my layers a little bit longer, because on the ends especially, I'm concerned that it's going to be a challenge to get to black. We will see. We will see. Maybe we won't need to get all the way to black. Maybe this will do good enough for the look we're wanting to get to. This is where these paint layers get smaller and smaller and smaller. But like anything, the devil is in the details. Now, if I were painting this for a commission or a contest, probably would go over this at this stage. Oh, sorry, I got a lot of shake. I apologize. I would probably go over this stage with that off-white, just really thinned down, and then reapply the darks. Just to go ahead and clean my brush here. Start nice and clean again into that darker brown. Oh, the challenge of painting. Getting enough elbow room in everything. Oh yeah, I like that. It sits in there nice and tight. And then you can see as we are applying this color, I hope you can see that we are starting to really get a more organic feel on those horns. Almost looking like a good cow horn even at this state. I apologize if that base blocks out a little bit of the camera. I did adjust a little bit before doing this layer so that process-wise I'm able to move around a little bit easier. not too shabby. I'm gonna line them up. I have discarded what I used earlier on the helmet. Now I'm debating. No, I'm not going to use it. So with the wet palette, the coloring of the paints stays nice and moist as long as you've got that parchment paper on your wet sponge in the bath, in the water tub. But because I switched it out for this palette, I was hoping to be able to grab it real quick and use it, but the paints on it, on the parchment paper, have already almost completely dried out. So I've got to go back to the bottles and just, we'll have to just do a dropper and re-hit the grays with some new fresh paint onto our shared palette here. But that way we can continue to work as those layers are drying nice on the treasure chest. Because goal-wise, I want to, as we're doing these horns, I would love to get this treasure chest completed as well. Put another drop on that palette of that dark gray. I was hoping for this next Saturday posting to be able to have this miniature done. I am so excited to start on Blightfang, but I don't know that we're going to be there. I don't know that we're going to be there. That's okay. Maybe it'll buy you some time if you do want to paint along, to pick up a Blightfang and paint along. Again, I'd love to see your progress. If I can do this, anybody can. If you've got an interest at all, put a comment in the comments once this goes posted. And make sure to share it too if you have anybody who might enjoy just a relaxing watching paint dry while in quarantine, or someone who is thinking about getting into miniature painting. I would love to help inspire someone to get into the hobby. Going back to my youth, when my oldest brother started miniature painting, I thought it was just amazing. But back then all the figures were lead and pretty dull in color when they arrived. But seeing him transform them from that dull, dark gray color to the finished product was just awesome. I loved watching him paint. I'd do it for hours. For Pablo, if you're watching this, thank you for the inspiration. Definitely means a lot to me to be able to work and focus on something that I'm so passionate about, that you really helped inspire and grow. Of course, most of my family now really supports it. I think for most of my family anyhow, my kids have painted minis with me and helped clean up. Before I used a wet palette, they had to help clean palettes with me, and so they've got a lot of experience with me, seeing me paint minis. And so a big thank you to them as well for humoring Pop while he painted minis furiously. Learned about it, developed, and over time got what I feel is better and better. I'm starting to obsess a little bit over those small details. I told myself I wouldn't, but I am. That's okay. This guy here for the frost giant, I'll be excited to get to be able to put him on a table again. Or again, I say again, but I get to use him in a game and put the miniature on a table. But the campaigns that I've got going, I don't know when I'll be able to again. One of the campaigns, the party was in an area that's pretty synonymous with frost giants, but they've left and moved on. Another campaign that I have, I suppose I could do it. We're playing Icewind Dale from the Faerun campaign. But they've already encountered the one frost giant area. Maybe they'll go find another one just so I get a chance to put this guy out on the table. Of course, that one's not in person either. It's a virtual, so I could send them images of what they see, I suppose. It's a little challenging with that light on this dark gray. There we go. Again, I think I'm fussing a little too much on this treasure chest for it being the accessory that's just going to sit on the back of the frost giant. But that's okay. All right, let's put that aside, get back onto some horns. Now this is the last layer of browns that I have planned. This is a deeper reddish. Yeah, I should have Now I'm kicking myself a little bit for being a little too sparing on the yellow. Laying down that base that transitioned in, because these are going to have a lot more white. I don't know. Give me your thoughts. Do you like it? Do you know it once it's done? And I just love to get feedback on what your thoughts are. Whether you think it came out good or bad. And you know, things that you would change on it. Of course, these parts here under the helmet are a little more challenging. And then same on this side. Again, we're going to have to do a little more almost backwards-ish. But we're getting into smaller and smaller areas, so that's okay. That is okay. I mean, I think those are looking pretty decent, pretty darn decent for horns on the Frost Giant's helm. Quite a bit of differentiation from the horn to the cape. It doesn't look like it's, you know, just the same paint, because it isn't really. We used a different base, and then aside from the yellow, different transitions up. So the last little bit is going to be on the very tips, the very ends, straight black. Straight black. I told you it would be going to black, and I was not making that up. And this is coloring based off of a photo that I Googled. And one of the big call-outs from using things like that for inspiration, I highly recommend it, because even in my application, it is not exact to the photo that I Googled. So my transitions are much further out from where the images were. There's a lot less of the darker colors on the horns compared to what the photo had. They had probably a good, oh, I don't know, third of the horn was black. Maybe not quite a third, but a good portion of the horns were black. just very selectively going to drop some here and there in these deepest areas. Just super selectively, because we did so sparingly on the browns, well, starting on the yellow and into the browns, that it did not leave a whole lot of room for us to drop in black. But that is okay. The image that I used for inspiration, actually the whole bases were black as well. But overall, I don't think it's bad. I think it looks pretty decent. I mean, they definitely look organic in the coloration. They have got just overall really good coloring. I am going to, just on one little spot here, do just a little bit of a wash, just real lightly. That will lighten that up a little bit, that one little area there. Now I'm not doing the same here because those on the outer ends I don't mind, but this one was just a little too stark. So just a little light wash lightens it up a little bit. Look at those horns. I mean, I think overall that looks pretty darn good. I mean, you could even make the argument that those could be some type of tusks, but I love the thought that they are horns. Maybe they're dragon's horns at that size, because when you compare those horns, I mean, it would definitely have to be a big, huge, massive longhorn or yak or something. So on that miniature, all we've got left is the yellow, well, the golds, I guess we'll call them golds because that's what they will be. But I mean, I know this video is getting a little long. I want to finish out the grays on the treasure chest with the highlights being up here. This one, I'm not going to do as many transitions. I'm going to keep it with a triad. It's going to be a little more stark, but I don't want to take all the time that I would on this little bit. So this one is not going to get the royal treatment that the rest of the mini had gotten. I apologize, I was blocking a little bit there, painting off camera. And while this part here is not going to be in the light,
Still going to do a little bit of detailing on it, just so it translates that it's metal. Give that just a moment to dry. I'm going to move Frosty out a bit. Excuse me. And thin this up a bit. And progressively lighter and lighter coloring in smaller and smaller patches. And trying to keep those paints nice and thin still. Trying to pick out where the light would actually hit this bad boy. These sides have got a little bit of a undercut to them on that lid part. I'll call out a little bit of that ring and the bolts. Just a little bit of the corners here. Just a little bit of that corner there. And we'll do a lightest layer. Where this is getting the most light. And again, I've been playing with this mini for so much. I know that this is kind of the uppermost area. And just super thin wherever those highest points are, wherever the light is going to strike the strongest. That's what I want to call out. And then I'm only doing this handle here on this side, which is actually going to be one of the most shaded areas, just for definition alone. Again, fooling the eye to see the details. And then a brighter spot on the most direct. This is where the light actually hits it. And then this side here is also high up. But I apologize if I was out of frame there. Tiny, tiny amounts there. And then to really pop it, this is the off-white that we had used on the Frost Giant horns. I am putting just a dot of that off-white in few super select spots. And there is our treasure chest. Now we're going to break this video here because I know it's getting long. We're going to come back and do the rope and the gold on the helmet. The gold on the helmet is the last bit we've got on the miniature proper. That's going to be the band, and then the pieces around the horns and the overarch and eyebrow pieces and that back piece. So we'll prep up the palette with those colors and be back to it.
Thanks for watching our video. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we'd love to have you subscribe. Feel free to hit that button if you care to get notifications for when we post new content. Leave your comments below and help us answer the question of where will your adventures take you. Enjoy.